Okay, so now remember, whatever I put on the board, write in your notes.
Is
So
that
you've
the
got it.
value with those lines on it?
Yes, yes. Solving absolute value equations. That's what we're going to
did
talk
learn
about.
that.
Today's date is,
Forgot how to do it.
I think it's the 30th, isn't it? So it's
Well, it's
9,
on the schedule board.
9:30. Oh, it's on the schedule board?
Yeah.
Well, I wrote it there too. So it's 9, whatever I said, 9:30:15. All right, solving absolute value equations. Absolute value. Let's just talk about what is absolute value. When you see absolute value, well, actually, first of all, before I even do that, let me write a definition. Absolute value. Just gotta make sure I'm on the screen here. Absolute value. All right, the definition is the distance away, well, the distance from zero. I'll just say this. The distance from zero. That's pretty simple definition. Now, what is it about distance? What kind of numbers can you never have with a distance? Say it again?
Negative? No, 0.
All right, well, that's a good question. She says negative. All right, here's a box, right?
Oh, that's for,
Wouldn't you agree with me that this box, the length has a distance
yeah,
and the width has a distance, right?
yeah.
Right? Is it possible to have a negative 10-inch distance?
No.
No.
What is a negative distance? That's, there's no such thing. It's impossible, right? So you're right. You cannot have a negative number for a distance. And that's what absolute value allows you to do. Is it allows you to take something that's negative and turn it into a positive number, right? For example, gosh, it's unbelievable. Where did I, the second time. Let's see if I can do three in a row. All right, watch this. Here's a number line, right? Here's 0. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, negative 8, right? All right. Here's 8 right there. How far is 8 away from 0?
8.
It's 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How far is negative 8 away from 0?
Negative 8. 8.
I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 8 away from 0. It's not negative 8. A distance is not a negative. We use the number line because we talk about positive and negative integers, where the negative comes in as like, you know, when you borrow money, right? You know, when you make $10 and you have to spend $100, now you're suddenly in the negative, right? So, so negative numbers works for money, but it does not work for distance. So absolute value is the distance from 0, okay? And so the way you'll see it in math is this. You'll see it written like this. The absolute value is two straight lines, just like that, and they have a number inside, like let's say 12. The absolute value of 12, think about it on a number line. How far is 12 away from 0? 12. So the absolute value of 12 is 12. Now, this is the interesting thing. Look at this. The absolute value of negative 12 is 12, right? Well, that's interesting, right? So an absolute value will take the final value inside the absolute values lines, right? And it'll turn it positive. If it's already positive, it just stays positive. It doesn't turn it negative. Just, right? Does that make sense, Sarah? You get that? You're writing the stuff down for sure? Okay, good. And so, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use this in equations, and we're going to see what that means. Can you wait till after the, you're going to miss the best part. Can you wait? Just a little bit? It won't be really long. I mean, 5 5 minutes maybe, 10 minutes at the most, right? Probably 5, 20, 30 at the most. No, seriously, if you can. I just don't want you to miss this part, okay? Because it'll be hard. You'll kind of miss the whole kit and caboodle. Absolute value, distance away from 0. So in an equation, you might see something like this. The absolute value of x equals 6. That's an equation. Now instead of a number here, I've got an x. I have a variable, right?
That'd be the 6 and negative 6?
Yeah, that's interesting. So look at that. So I could rewrite this as the absolute value of 6 is equal to 6. That would be true, right? And like Cassius said, the absolute value of negative 6 equals 6. You guys see that? So that means that x, the value of x itself, could either be positive 6 or negative 6. Because the absolute value of either of those, positive 6 or negative 6, still gives me the same answer, right? Therefore, you have 2 answers. And Cassius, it wasn't so scary, right? You got it immediately. So, but when you're solving these, this is what you do. I'm going to actually erase these bottom 2 for a second. When you solve them, there's one thing that's a very important note. Important. I'll just say important. Okay? The absolute value expression must be isolated. Meaning, what does isolated mean? All by itself. Right? That's what isolated means. In other words, the absolute value expression is this part. The straight line, something inside, and then a straight line. And then after that, there should be an equal sign, and that's it. There should not be a +4 or a -3. There should not be a 2 in front of the absolute value sign. There should just be absolute value of something equals. That's isolated, right? So that's all I'm giving you tonight for homework, so it's not going to be hard. They're all going to be isolated. And you'll understand why that's so important in a minute, next time. Go ahead.
What were the other ones that were below that one?
Oh, I put all the possibilities. I put the absolute value of 6 would equal 6, or the absolute value of -6 would equal 6. Does that make sense?
I think
Right.
we did learn this last time.
Did you? You might have. You might have.
You did.
Okay, great. So this will be pretty piece of cake then. But so what you do now to solve an equation is this. You actually write 2 equations. The first one is going to be exactly what you see here. But after I make sure that it's isolated, that is isolated, followed by an equal sign, then it's okay. So I'm just going to remove these absolute value signs, and I'm just going to write the same thing I see there, right here. X equals 6. And then I'm going to write the word or, because there's, yes. And then I'm going to do x, this equals the opposite of this number,
Didn't I do it right?
which is -6. So x equals -6.
Karen,
What?
did I do it right on the?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I don't
Maybe I did the problem wrong, but I did 2 answers.
You might have. Well, that's good. Okay. So this is the easiest scenario, right? Now let's look at slightly more complicated scenarios. It's not going to take very long. You're going to see, oh my God, this is so easy.
Wait, so that's just the answer?
That's the answer.
That's done?
X equals 6 or x equals -6.
Box it.
Now, where it gets more tricky is when it's not just an x inside the absolute value sign. So can I erase this?
So we can't really solve for x?
Oh, you can. You can.
Oh, just.
You can, but here, let me show you. Here's our next one. Here's example number 2. Example number 2, we've got the absolute value of x plus 5 equals 22.
Wouldn't you change while you write that problem?
So we're going to do the same thing that we did before.
Then you just change your.
First of all, though, I'm going to ask myself, is the absolute value expression isolated?
Yes.
Yes. There's this absolute value sign, a bunch of stuff, absolute value sign, and followed by an equal sign. It is isolated.
Oh, I know the answer.
So, what is it?
X equals 27 or X equals negative, 15?
All right, well, we'll try.
Or
Let's see.
negative
Keep that in your mind. All right, let's try it. So the first rule is to just rewrite that whole thing without the absolute value signs. Actually, once I know it's isolated. So I've got x plus 5 equals 22. I just don't have my absolute value sign. But then I have to put the or. And then I'm going to write what?
X plus 5 equals negative.
Yes. X plus 5 equals negative 22.
Okay,
Right?
Yeah.
I'm doing exactly the same thing. The only thing is I have it equal the opposite number here. Okay, you with me? Does that make sense to you, Sarah?
Yeah, I did it wrong.
X
Right.
could equal negative
Now-
17 or
So yeah, so now let's solve
X
it.
equals
We got minus 5, so we've got x is equal to what? What's 22 minus 5?
Oh.
What's 22 minus 5?
17.
17.
And that
All
would
right,
be-
minus 5 minus 5. So now we've got x equals negative 27. So you did them right, except you had the signs backwards, right? So it's hard to do these in your head. You know, it's so much easier to write them out, and you have to have two equations always, two answers. All right. Now a common mistake. I want everybody's eyes up here for a second. I want to just show you what a common mistake is. A lot of times, instead of putting this here, instead of making a negative sign there, people change this sign to a negative. Because they think, oh, well, absolute value of negative 5 is positive 5, so it's going to be x plus 5 over here. So it'll be x minus 5 equals 22, and x plus 5 equals, or whatever. X plus 5 equals 22, and x minus 5 equals 22. Wrong. You keep this exactly the same. This never changes, right? X plus 5, x plus 5. This is the only thing that changes. Equals either 22 or the opposite of 22, which is negative 22. Okay?
Whatever's like in front of the equal sign is basically you just turn the negative, right?
Whatever is in front of what? I'm sorry?
If it was 22 plus 4, would you change plus 4 into negative 4 too?
Here?
Yeah.
Well, I would just add the like terms, right? 22
Yeah.
plus 4 is 26.
Yeah.
And then, yes, it would be negative.
Can there
But you're right. I would change, in essence, you'd be changing everything. You would be,
After the equal sign.
yeah, exactly. That's a good question. That's a really good
Can
question.
there ever be more than two answers?
No, not that I know of. Okay? So it's pretty easy, right? Now, let me just do one last one. Not because it's any more difficult, it's just that I just think one more thing. And Luca, you can go anytime. Thanks for waiting. Absolute value of 2x plus 8 is equal to, I don't know, 20? I'm just slowly adding more stuff to it, right? Now suddenly there's something in front of the x. There's a 2 in front of the x. But it's still the same thing. So here, Sarah, help me. What would I write first? What's my first thing?
2x plus 8 is 20.
Beautiful. So 2x plus 8 equals 20. It's exactly what's written there, just without the absolute value signs. 2x plus 8, exactly, everything there equals the opposite of that, negative 20. Beautiful. Great, so now I just solve it. Minus 8, so we have 2x is equal to 12, right? And then I just divide by 2, right? So Naeem, are you writing this stuff down?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, x equals 6, right? And then here, minus 8, minus 8, draw my line. 2x is equal to negative 28. And then I've got to divide by 2. And divide by 2. And I get x is equal to negative 14. Okay? So that's my answer. And I put an or in between. Right? Now, a common mistake, another common mistake. Did you have a question, Una? Okay, another common mistake is somebody will do this one, and they'll say, oh, the answer is 6, so x is either 6 or negative 6. Right?
Yeah.
Now, doesn't work that way. It would be awesome if it did, but it doesn't. Right? So look at, just write this down in your notes, you've got it. But there's no real difference. Did you have a question, Una?
I did.
I was gonna ask, like, what is the point of this?
Yeah. That's a good question.
It's a good question.
He's trying to figure
sorry.
it out.
Well, no, it's because in distance, like, some of this stuff is math, right? And it's, I mean, it is all math, right? All of this stuff is math. But some of it is just practicing, getting used to concepts so that you understand them, right? But there will be a time when you can use this stuff in real life, right? But the concept of absolute value, meaning if you have a negative distance, oh, well, that's impossible, therefore it's going to be a positive. If your distance is on your number line is negative 20, you know, well, it's actually positive 20. And that's important as we move, you know, you may see that in the future with different kind of things where that's useful. But I can think about it tonight maybe, because we're going to talk about taking this one step further tomorrow probably. Now on Friday there's going to be a quiz, okay? And the quiz is going to cover, and I want to know what you feel comfortable with and what you feel weak on still. It's going to cover solving equations, like we've been doing in the last week. You know, where you have to add like terms, right? Remember that? I might give you 2x plus 3x minus x equals 10, right? So you have to add those like terms, equals 10, and then solve for x. Or I might give you stuff like was on the homework last night, but all of you had no problem with that. So that's no problem. There will also be graphing using a T-chart. I'm insisting on the T-chart because the T-chart's so important in that it always works. It's important that you master the T-chart. You do not want to be afraid of a T-chart. A T-chart's great.
I'm confused with fractions and teacher.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this. Well, we'll cover that tomorrow. Then. We'll just do a big review tomorrow maybe, and then we'll have the quiz on Friday, and then maybe I'll still have time to do a little lecture, and we'll do the next step of this. Because I don't want to put the next step of this on the quiz. I'd rather you guys just master this right now. Yeah. Yes, you may.
Oh, you're going.